Okay, so above is, on the top of the screen, is the math message for today. And I decided to include the math message and the practice problems because they actually use the same information, just two different word problems. So I included them in the same video. Okay, so let's get started and let's read our problem and highlight any important information. The Social Studies Club wants to make paper mache globes. To make paste, each club member, and I'm going to actually underline each, because that tells us that every single member will mix 3/4 cup of white glue, 1/4 cup of water. Now, the club has 9 members. So that means each club member, so there's 9. The club has 9 members. They have 1 quart of water. Is there enough water for everyone to make a batch of paste? So let's look. Let's write down what we already know. We know that there are 9 members. And they each need 1/4 cup of water. Now, notice the problem is not asking about white glue, so we're not even going to address that part of the problem. We're only going to be focusing on how much water that the Social Studies Club needs. So if 9 members each need 1/4 cups of water, and those 9 members are sharing 1 quart of water. So the first thing I need to do is convert quarts to cups. See how many cups is in 1 quart. So I'm actually going to slide over and go to yesterday's lesson. And I'm going to notice that in 1 quart, there is 4 cups. So now I'm going to go write that down so I don't forget. So 1 quart is equal to 4 cups. And I'm actually going to highlight it because that's going to be very helpful to see if we have enough water. So now we have to figure out how much water they need all together. We know each member needs 1/4 of a cup. How much do all 9 need all together? Now you'll notice I set up these boxes on this page, and they're going to represent each strategy that you can use to solve. So the first strategy we're going to do is repeated addition. And we've done this in previous lessons with adding to show subtraction, but now we're doing the same thing. Instead of whole numbers, we're using fractions. So 9 of the members need 1/4 cup of water. So I'm going to add 1/4 9 times. Now, I just want to count and double check that I did 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, see? I did 1 extra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Good. Equals, if I were to add that all up, I would get 9/4. Now, I know that 9/4 is an improper fraction. So I can think to myself, what is a multiple of 4 that's close to 9? And I know that 8 is. And 2 times 4 is 8. So that means I could take out one group of 4/4 and another group of 4/4 plus the remaining 1/4, and you get 2 and 1/4 cups of water. So we automatically found out that the whole Social Studies Club needs 2 and 1/4 cups of water in order to make the paste for their paper mache globes. So that is actually the answer to our problem. And we're going to show a different way that you could have solved that. So that was a repeated addition. So now we're going to draw a picture. Now this is not my favorite strategy. It doesn't mean you can't use it, but I like to do other strategies just because sometimes drawing a picture takes a long time. Okay, so we're going to draw a picture. We're going to do, now I know that there is 4 cups in a quart. So I'm going to draw 4 fraction bars to represent those 4 cups of water. Now remember, each of these equals 1 cup. Now, we're going to split them into fourths because they only need 1/4 of of water. And now I'm going to label. So member 1, member 2 gets a fourth, member 3, member 4, member 5, member 6, member 7, member 8, member 9. So the ones that have the numbers show how much of that 4 cups is being used. And we know that this is equal to 2 wholes, and this is equal to 1/4. So our answer is 2 1/4. Now, if you took all of these 4 fraction bars, it represents how much water they have in total. And we can tell that they definitely have enough water because you still have all of this water that's not being used. Okay, so that's the draw a picture strategy. Now we can do fraction circles. Now, I would recommend only using fraction circles when you're dealing with thirds, halves, or fourths. Anything above, even fifths, anything above that, it gets hard to make the pieces as even as possible. So I'm going to do the best that I can, and I'm going to draw 3 fraction circles. And I'm going to split them up into fourths. Now, each of these pieces represents a fourth. And it represents one member of the Social Studies Club because they each only need a fourth. So while I'm doing this, I'm counting how many squares I'm coloring in. So this is 6, so that's for the 6 members. 7, 8, 9. And you can actually even label with member 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And actually, I just noticed that I labeled too much. So it's always good to go back and double check. And as you can see, we have 2 whole fraction circles and 1/4 of one that's left. So we're getting still the same 2 1/4. Okay, you also could do this as a multiplication number story. I use the number symbol to represent number. I'm going to highlight it in green. Okay, you could do 9, because there's 9 groups, 9 kids, times they each need 1/4. So 9 groups of 1/4. That's where we can use our repeated addition knowledge and turn it into a multiplication story. So what you can do is when you multiply a whole number times a fraction, you're going to do 9 times the numerator, which would give you, and I'm going to show it in green, it will give you 9. Now, my denominator is going to stay the same. It's going to be fourths. And as you can see, 9 is bigger than 4, so I could take out a whole. And I know that a multiple of 4 is 8, and I know 4 times 2 is 8, so I could take out 2 wholes, and then 9 minus 8 is 1, and you put your denominator, 1/4. So that's how you would do it as a multiplication number story. So I'm going to actually save this as an anchor chart so you guys can refer back to it throughout this whole unit because I think it would be helpful. Okay, so let's answer some questions about this problem on the next page. Between what 2 whole numbers does the number of cups of water needed lie? And what they mean by lie is if I was to put this on a number line, where would I put it? So I know that we're plotting 2 and 1/4, and I know that it is, I could put 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to put my fractions. I know that 1 is equal to 4/4, and then you can do 5/4, 6/4, 7/4. 2 is equal to 8/4, 9/4. And remember, we got 9/4 from doing our repeated addition. We got an improper fraction, and from our multiplication story. So now the 2 whole numbers that this fraction is between is 2 and 3. How much water was left over after the activity? Because remember, they only had a quart, and we know that a quart is 4 cups. And they didn't use all 4 cups. They only used 2 and 1/4 of those cups. So we're solving for that unknown value. Now, the way that I like to do this is turning the whole numbers into improper fractions. So I know that 4 times 4/4 would give me 16/4. And here, 2 times 4/4 is going to give me 8/4 plus the 1/4 left over, 9/4. So if I did 16/4 minus 9/4, I'm going to get 7/4, which is equal to 1 3/4. This is how much water, how many cups of water they had left over. Because remember, as a team, they had 4 cups. They only used 2 and 1/4 cups of water. So is there enough water for everyone to make another batch of paste? Well, I know that they need 2 and 1/4 for every one of those 9 members to make a batch of paste. And I know we only have 1 3/4 cup left. And 2 and 1/4 is greater than 1 3/4, so no, we are unable to make another batch of paste. Okay, so that is how you would solve the math message. We are going to be using that same problem, and we're going to extend it by solving the amount of glue. So let's look at this, what they're asking us. It says the Social Studies Club has 1/2 gallon of white glue. Will there be enough glue for everyone? So let's go back to the problem and look at how much glue we're going to need. Okay, so let me erase here. It said, remember, the 9 members doesn't change, and they each need 3/4 of a cup of glue. So we have 9 members. I always like to write down what information I have, and they each need now see, I forgot how much glue they need. 3/4 of a cup of glue to make their paper mache globes. Now, I know that a gallon, because remember, we need to go from gallons to cups. If 1 gallon is equal to 16 cups, then a 1/2 gallon is equal to half of 16, which is 8. So they have 8 cups of glue. They only need 3/4 of glue per member. So you could do this 2 different ways. You could do repeated addition, which you'll do 3/4 9 times, because each of those members need 3/4 cup of glue. Which would equal 27/4. You also could have done this as a multiplication problem. 9 times 3/4. And you're going to multiply the whole number times the numerator, which is 27, and the denominator stays the same. Now, we can take out some whole numbers. What is a multiple of 4 that's close to 26? Well, I know 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 6 is 24, 4 times 7 is 28. So 28 is too big, so I can't use 7. So let's use 24. So that means I would take out 6 groups of 4/4. And each one of these groups represents a whole number. So all of this is equal to 24/4. But remember, we have 27/4, so we have to subtract 24/4, because remember, that represents whole number 6. 27 minus 24 is 3/4. So my answer is 6 3/4. So the whole entire club needs 6 3/4 cups of glue. Okay, so what 2 whole numbers does the cup of glue between the 2 whole numbers does the number of cups of glue that are needed lie? So again, I'm going to draw my number line. And I know that I have 6 3/4. And I know that's somewhere going to be between 6 and 7. So those are the 2 whole numbers that 6 3/4 go between. And probably if I was to plot this, it would be somewhere around here. Because this would be 6 and 2/4, 6 and 3/4. So actually it would probably be somewhere around here. Okay, so now let's look at the next question. How much glue was left over after the activity? Between what two whole numbers does that answer lie? So, if you remember, we had 8 cups of glue because they had a 1/2 gallon of glue. So they had 8 cups of glue. They only needed 6 3/4. So I'm actually going to turn these into improper fractions because it's going to be easier for me to subtract. So 8, if I were to do 8 times 4/4, right, because that represents a whole, I would get 32/4. And you could do the same thing with 6 times 4/4, and I would get 24/4 plus the 3/4 that are left over, and I would get 27/4. So I'm going to use those improper fractions, and I'm going to subtract them. 32/4 minus 27/4. And now the numerators are the same, so I'm able to just subtract across, and I get 5/4, which can also be written as 1 1/4 cup of glue. That's how much glue they have left over. Out of that 1/2 gallon, they are left with 1 1/4 cup, and that number is between 1 and 2. Those are the two whole numbers that fraction is between. Is there enough glue left over for everybody to make another batch of paste? Well, no, because we know that the whole Social Studies Club needs 6 3/4 cups of glue, and they only have 1 1/4 left over. And we know that 6 3/4 is greater than 1 1/4. Okay, check out the next video, and I'm going to walk you guys through how to do some of the journal pages and then the math boxes.